Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special episode of FaceTurn with Candace Cordelia. It's been quite some time since we've talked with any of our special guests that we usually have on the show. So I'm glad to be back for this new season for PWI. And I'm even more glad to talk with someone who I've been following for years, ever since I personally got into the wrestling industry as an interviewer. I've been lucky, as all of you, to know Lilian Garcia in the ring for WWE TV. And of course, we're going to talk not just about that, but her recording artist career. We're going to get more into pop culture and her work currently with the Professional Fighters League. Thank you so much, Lilian. It's really a joy to be here with you today.
Hi, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, and happy birthday. Happy
birthday.
Thank
you. Thank you. It's been awesome. I've been
it.
doing a lot of interviews and it's been great.
So good. Such gifts for you on this special day. Are you doing anything today or anything this week to celebrate?
Well, I'm always celebrating with my friends. I've got some amazing friends here. Even in Georgia, I just met some great people. So I think I'm going to end up having a celebration month is what it looks like. Even my sister, she's like, oh, I'm going to take you out. She wanted to take me out this past Saturday, but I was speaking in Atlanta, so I couldn't. But yeah, I mean, and sometimes it's just me alone on a bike ride, enjoying life and just being grateful to be alive. That for me is a celebration as well.
I can agree with that. And I also agree with you on celebrating for the whole month. I did the same thing last month. I'm a Cancer sun. So from a Cancer to a Leo, I totally get it. Celebrate. You got to celebrate your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I always say, celebrate your birthdays because you're not guaranteed your next. So, you really can't take it for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that note, I mean, you haven't taken life for granted. You've done so much both in and outside of wrestling. And, I've run down your whole resume. And of course, a lot of our fans are going to know you from your work in the WWE ring as a ring announcer. And you recently came back a few months ago, which I think it was one of the hugest pops of the year. It popped me because not only did we see you, but it's kind of like you were passing the torch in a way to another one of our favorite ring announcers at WWE, Samantha Irvin. Talk to us about that experience coming back for that special moment and, talking with Samantha herself.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was actually in South Carolina. I was taking care of my parents' house because they passed. And so I was emptying it out, and my sister would come as much as she could from Nashville, but I ended up living there for like 8 months to really get down into it because they accumulated 50 years worth of stuff. I mean, it was a lot. But in that, when I heard that WWE was in Greenville, I was like, oh, wow, it's only an hour and a half. I'd love to go by and say hi to everybody. It'd been like 5 years since I'd seen everybody. So I went by and then it was Triple H when I saw him and said hi. Then he contacted me a few hours later and he's like, hey, so I'd love to just put you on the show and have you maybe co-announce with Samantha. What do you think? And I'm like, I would love to do that. And I don't know, something came over me when we were in the middle of the ring that I felt it necessary to say and to put her over and to, just tell her what a great job she's doing and to say that in front of everybody. It just kind of came out spontaneously. And I didn't know that that's what everybody was going to be, focused in on, but it was a beautiful moment. And she's such a fan too. Like she's always been very appreciative of my work and what I did to open up the doors, for that. And so I just, and we've met before. We have met at ringside before. And she was just so cute. She's like, oh my God, I got to take my picture with you. And she was so excited to do that co-announcing too, that it was a great moment.
That's so nice. And it was really nice to see you both standing there in the ring and just the generational talent. When it comes to ring announcing, it's a field within, and not just within wrestling, but just within sports that seems a bit shrouded in mystery. We don't know too much, but we know just enough. And when it comes to your career and then seeing this new generation of ring announcers, what are your thoughts on that? And how have you tried to help that new generation, people like Samantha Irvin and others, to really get to a level of greatness that you've achieved in your life?
Well, thank you for saying that. First of all, Howard helped me, which was great because when I got hired and I didn't know that I was going to be a ring announcer that very night and I got thrown into the fire after that, I went to Howard and asked him, I was like, okay, well, what's the order that I put this in? And what do I say for this? And, so he was very helpful. And I remember taking that feeling and realizing how important that was to be mentored by him, to then be able to do that to the next generation. I think sometimes people hold back and don't want to help the next generation, or don't want to help someone that's even in their current job or whatever. And I always say there's enough room for everybody. There's enough room for everybody. You got to have the attitude to just give. Don't worry. The universe is going to give you back, And so I remember telling Samantha the first time I saw her, which was a few years ago, I just said, when she asked me, is there anything that you can help me with or any kind of advice? I said, make it your own. Like, really find a sound and a cadence. And, that's the good thing was, when I was thrown into the job, because I didn't know that I was going to be ring announcing, it's not like I went back and, and I was watching all this footage of Howard. So I created my own cadence, my own sound by just trial and error. But it worked in my favor because I didn't sound like either one of them. And that's what I told her to do, the same thing. And I think she's definitely created her own sound. And now also, I want to give props to Alicia, who's announcing on SmackDown. How incredible to have two women that are announcing the two top, WWE brands. It's really special.
It really is. And definitely shout out to Alicia. I love her as well. And it's really nice to see two women of color in these really prominent positions, and we know how hard it is, not just to be a ring announcer, but especially if you're a woman of color trying to really achieve something like this, and especially in combat sports. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it's very important. What advice would you give to anyone watching who are ring announcers or aspiring ring announcers, whether they'd want to be in the WWE, in MMA, PFL? What would you tell them to do to get started?
To get started? Well, I thought you meant like they're already there.
Well, both. To get started, but also there.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think it's really cool. I mean, I've even done autograph signings where I've had other females come up, or even the men that are like, wow, you inspired me to want to be a ring announcer. And that's really cool. That's really neat. And I take that to heart. Like, it's really special. But I think it's my number one thing, because I remember Greg, when he was announcing, and he asked me that, he's like, what advice would you give me? And I was like, the biggest one I could tell you is really find a way to sound like you announcing, not someone else, announcing. You don't want to copy someone else's style, because then you will not get remembered. All you're doing is you're keeping their style alive, right? So that's definitely one thing. The second thing is to respect the job. It's a really amazing position. You are presenting the match. It is so important. You are setting the tone for the match. You're the first thing within the match. So you've got to have that. It's like you are the MC, and you are, presenting these two or these four or these six, whoever's going to go against each other, but you're setting the tone. So have respect for that position. I think those are the two biggest thing. And then memorize, just go in and memorize everything. And if you do mess up, just learn from it and go on to the next. Like, don't harp on it, because that's easy to do, is to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I messed that up. And then you're in your head, and then you take that to your next match. Yeah, no, if you mess up, you're human, Jordan didn't make every single, shot that he went for. And neither do the football players. The quarterbacks don't always, every throw that they don't always get to the touchdown, so it's to remember that you are going to have some hiccups, but you just got to learn from it and then go to the next.
It's excellent advice. Very excellent advice. And before I get a little bit into PFL, you mentioned football. Football season is practically here. So I have to ask if you have a favorite football team.
I love football, but mostly it's college football that I was in. And that's because I moved to South Carolina when I was 8, and there was no professional football team there. The Panthers didn't come for many, many years after, and they're in North Carolina. People think that South Carolina and North Carolina are the same. They are not. I just wanted to be known they are not. Two completely different states, just have one little thing in common. That's it. Um, so it's hard for a lot of the South Carolina people to actually pull for the Panthers because don't really, I don't know, doesn't feel like our team. So I was always a Carolina fan because I went to University of South Carolina. So and that's my alma mater. I'm a Gamecock. I love Carolina football. I got to sing for the Carolina, football team, and it's just, it's so much fun. God, there's nothing like tailgating at a Carolina game.
This is true. This is true. Nothing like tailgating for sure. Well, as you might have already guessed, I went to Syracuse, as we talked about that a little bit beforehand. So I have to go for my orange. But when it comes to NFL, I mean, I'm from Philly. I have to go with my Eagles. So
there you go.
I'm always kind of like, who are you rooting for? But I'm not the Eagles fan where it's like, oh my gosh, you're not rooting. We can't be cool. Some people are diehard. Some people are very diehard. So.
Yeah. Well, it's like me. I mean, I got to sing at a lot of NFL games, but the fact that the New York Jets brought me in 13 times to sing for them, and I got to even do a halftime show. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Of my music, of the EP that came out, of my time, that album, I to do a 7-minute halftime show with their cheerleaders and all in the middle of MetLife Stadium blew my mind. But so that really made me a fan of the Jets, the way they supported me and all. And I think I believe I'm like 10-3 or something like that record, or 11-2 or something every time I sang. And so everyone was like, we got to have you sing more often because the Jets don't win that much.
You're a good luck charm. That is amazing. That's amazing. Well, let's talk about your singing career. Is there anything happening in the near future? Any new albums, new records, new singles that we should look out for?
Yes, definitely new singles. I'm very excited because I found at the end of 2021 when I was so lost, and a friend of mine extended her hand and she's like, hey, why don't you come to church with me? I found what non-denominational church is about. I didn't know what mega churches were about. I didn't really know that type of Christian music. And so I fell in love with it. I joined the worship team, and I just found, now that I recently moved here to Georgia, I found a new church. I auditioned for them. I will be starting at that church, which I'm so excited about. Just singing worship is just amazing. And so I ended up recording some songs last year with a producer in California before I left. And so I will be releasing that, but I'm not going to give you any details yet because I don't have them yet. and because I want you to have me back, and we'll talk in detail about that. But yeah, I'm very excited about this new music because a lot of it too is about some of the struggles that I went through. And I'm hoping, my whole goal in my life is to help other people out through what I've gone through, which is why I also love to speak. I go to organizations and I speak. I really want people to tap into their, what I call arena level confidence, and to be able to really meet their, exceed their expectations on what they can do, of their potential. And if people could see that, this world would be better off, right? And so I love to do that. So I'm doing the two things. I'm singing and I'm also speaking. But it's always been using my voice. It's something God has given me, this voice to keep doing things with. I'm blessed.
And you've also used your voice for your podcast, which I also personally love, Chasing Glory. What's the news about that for the future? Are you doing anything more with it as time goes on? Because I know I think it's over 8 million listens on Peacock. It's phenomenal. It is phenomenal what you're doing. And you're also helping people with your podcast.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know what's happening with that as 2024 is reaching the end and we're going into a new year shortly.
So when I had to put Chasing Glory on hold, it broke my heart because I love that show so much. And I love what it represents. And I love what it was, what it became. But it did become this monster that I didn't realize that it was going to become. And it was so big. And I was running a lot of it myself. The last season was on Peacock through the WWE. So that's like the 10 last episodes that I did. But the first 140 or 150 of them, 150 of them, those were ones that I was doing on my own. And my goodness, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I had to put it on hold when my mother passed. I was grieving so hard when that happened. And then my marriage falling apart, that it was just too much for me to bear. And I want to tell that to anybody out there that's going through a hard time, that's trying to also at the same time juggle their careers, juggle their things and being like, no, I've got to hold on. It's okay. Sometimes you need to let those things go so that you have the time to heal. And that's what I had to do. I had to take the time to heal. And then I moved. My gosh, I moved 4 times since then. It's been crazy. I didn't realize I was going to be moving this much. But now I'm hoping, with me being here in Georgia, I really am hoping that I can revamp Chasing Glory. I would love to. We'll see what God's plan is for that. But if it doesn't, I'm also not devastated by it, because it was such a beautiful thing. And some things have a season. So I'm okay either way. And so we'll see. But I am grateful to everybody that tuned in. And I do love that the episodes are still available, all of them. And even on Peacock, you can still see the last 10 episodes that I did.
It's such a great show. And I'm also very glad that it's still available, so that people who have yet to watch it can just tune in and gain a lot of the golden nuggets and wisdom that you can really take from it. And you've had such amazing guests. Is there one person you haven't interviewed yet that you'd love to, whether it's on a resurgence of your podcast or in another medium?
Wow. I haven't really given it some thought yet. I'm sure if I sat down, because my goodness, I was so grateful to be able to interview the amount of people that I did get to interview. I mean, I would love to interview Rock. I think because we had such camaraderie backstage and getting to know each other in one way. I would love to get to know him in another way and do a deep dive Chasing Glory story on him. I think it would be awesome. But I'm just really grateful for the people that I did get. And I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure I can write a whole list of new people. I love to get to know people's story. What were the obstacles that they got through to be where they are now? Because every one of us, and I think that that's what I proved with that show, every one of us go through a lot in our lives. And it's not what you go through, it's how you get through it that matters. And I think that the more we share, the more we can not feel alone in our own adversities, and the more we can help each other out.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I feel as though, because especially with social media, a lot of people, especially women, are starting to learn more about their lives, themselves, and the world just by hearing people express their stories. If there was one topic that you feel needs to have a spotlight on that isn't getting enough shine right now, what do you think that is? And is that something that you would like to bring more attention to as well?
The first thing that popped in my mind, and it's funny because, celebrating my birthday this month, it just kind of brings it out. I think there's so many people that don't want to celebrate their birthday because they're so scared of aging, and they're so scared of even saying their age. They're so scared of being called old. And yet I also feel like some people are the first ones to say, "Oh, I'm so old." And then when I'm like, well, what is your age? And then they tell me, I'm like, that's not old. You got like 50 more years ahead of you. You're going to say you're old for 50 more years? Like, that's crazy, right? Roddy Piper, when he passed away, it made me so sad. When I was at his funeral, his family had said that he didn't want anybody to really focus on his age. He didn't want anybody to know his age. He was 61 when he passed. And he thought that people were going to call him a has-been and call him old, and it just didn't have any more to offer. That is so far from the truth with Roddy, with so many people, right? We all have something to offer, no matter what age we are. I have relationships with, I have this woman that was 83 years old, and I ask her things all the time. Why? Because she's full of wisdom. She knows at 83 things that I don't know. And so I ask her all the time these things. Well, Roddy, when I found that out, it broke my heart. And then it also made me go, because I'll never forget. I found out at ringside about his passing. We all found out. There was a group of us that were at ringside at WWE. We found out that he passed. And the first thing out of everybody's mouth was, oh, how young, too young. Oh my gosh, so young. Okay, so let me ask you, you're considered young dead, but old alive? Right? So that's when I said, oh, no. If you would be considered young dead, you are more than young alive. So whatever your age you're at, whether you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, if they would say to you, oh, how young if you died, then you are young alive. Remember that, but it starts with us stopping lying about our age, stopping to be embarrassed about our age. Stop, because if we are not the first ones to be proud of our next year, remember, we don't know for sure that the alternative is death. I mean, that's it, right? But what we do need to do is take care of ourselves. You got to take care of your body. You got to take care of your mind. You got to watch what you eat. You got to exercise. You got to take care of your temple. You get one and done. That's it. Just like a car. If they said to you, you only get one car for the rest of your life, you better believe you'd be putting the right gas in that car. You better believe you'd be taking care of it and nurturing it. Why are we not doing that with our bodies? And so that's my message and my thing. And I love talking about it because I really want people's light bulbs to go off and be proud. And I love Lisa Bilyeu. She said, really, we shouldn't even say old and age. It's levels. What level are we getting to?
Yes, I love Lisa as well, and her husband. I watch their shows on YouTube constantly. It's very interesting you mentioned this because, kid you not, earlier this morning, I was watching one of my other favorite YouTubers, and one of the recent episodes was about age. And she was talking about women and young girls and their thoughts on aging and the differences between Gen Z, how Gen Z looks at it versus millennials like myself and Gen X, and how different it is now, and how even younger women are considering themselves old at 25 years old, which is...
Isn't that sad? So what, for the next 75 years, they're going to say they're old?
Exactly.
That's sad. That's sad to me. But you know what? We can always change things, because old for me, I'm like, oh, so are you saying that I'm outrageously loving and dynamite? Yes, then I'm old.
Exactly. Exactly. And we live in a very, very wild time, but like you said, we can change this. It's not something that can't be reversed.
It starts with you, though. It starts with you. And you got to stop getting down the rabbit hole of Instagram, where you start seeing, and all these filters and all these things, like, and all the things that people are doing to their faces, and, with the fillers and the Botox and all that. You gotta calm all that down, because let me tell you, you start doing that in your 20s and all that, I don't know what you're going to look like. I think Meryl Streep said that we're going to have a whole generation of grandmothers and nobody's going to recognize. Right? It's like your face. I don't know what grandma's going to look like. You keep doing that. And I understand it's because people are trying to feel better about themselves. I get it. I've been caught in that little trap. And then finally I was like, what am I doing to please who? No, like I make sure I don't eat sugar, because sugar puffs me up. Sugar does not do well for me. I don't eat processed foods. Same thing. I get inflamed. I know what certain things do to my body. So that for me is the best thing that I can do. And so, it starts with you, though.
It really does. It really does. And I love that you mentioned that and you're so candid about it. Our time is running short, unfortunately. I feel like I could talk about this topic and so many others with you, Lilian.
Me
this
too.
Has been so great, and would love to have you back on. My last question for you today, and it's kind of related, in fact, with what we were just discussing, ageism, and getting into Hollywood, because that's a whole other bag. But when it comes to Hollywood and movies and TV, I would love to know what shows or movies you would love to be in, or other actors that you would like to act against. I was just watching the new John Cena movie, which was hilarious to me. So,
I haven't seen it.
It's great. It's great. It's very silly, but if you're into silly comedy, it's awesome. And John is fantastic in it, I believe. And Awkwafina as well, who's in it. But I would love to know, who would you like to act against in the future? Is that something that you're interested in? Those opportunities also come to you?
You know what? I did acting a lot in my earlier years, before even getting into WWE. I did a lot of things for school. And I love acting, but to be honest with you, my passion right now is two things, and that is singing and
Mm,
speaking. I go to corporations. I love speaking at corporations or in schools. I love being inspired, giving an inspirational message to someone that can ignite them to be their best self. For me, there's nothing more like a rush than someone coming to me after one of my speeches and going, "Oh my gosh, I needed to hear that. I'm fired up." And even like when we talk about ageism right now, I'm hoping that someone goes, "Wow, you set me free. No longer am I going to worry about my age. No longer am I going to, be lying about it. No longer am I going to feel embarrassed about it. No longer am I going to apologize for the gift of another year." That to me is what gives me a rush, and that's what I want to do. And so I want to tell your fan base, if anybody out there wants to book me for whether it's speaking at a school or a corporation or something, reach out to my team. And this is booking@liliangarcia.com. This is only for business inquiries, but booking@liliangarcia.com. Lillian's with one L in the middle.
Perfect. I hope you all caught that. The whole sermon, to be quite honest, this was very inspirational for me, and I'm glad that
Good.
it's such a great way for me to start my day. So thank you, Lillian. We appreciate you here at PWI and beyond. It's been a joy
Thank you.
speaking with you and would love to have you come back. Thanks so much.
Same. Thank you.
Welcome,
Bye.
and thank you all for watching. Follow us at PWI, follow Lilian Garcia. And also, if you're interested in having her come to your school or other events, corporate or otherwise, you caught that email address, and you can always go onto her social media for more information. Until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.